Welcome back to another vid. Hopefully you guys have been following my channel so far. Thanks to all the subscribers that I have so far. I'm constantly trying to get more to come in here and check out my content, but also learn something from it because I am consistently on a daily basis learning something from my own personal self. So I want to pass on what I learned to you guys. So thank you for the people that are here. I have to apologize for the video I put out last week with a bit of an introduction and then into the short film I created called The Desert. I said on that little film before I showed the movie that I put it on YouTube in 4K. I did not. When I went back and checked my timeline was 1080p and my output was 1080p. Normally I check the output. For some reason I thought I must have been just working in 4K. It wasn't. So the output is not. I apologize for that. So hopefully by the beginning of next week or middle, there'll be the full 4K of The Desert you guys can view. No introduction, just the film itself. So as I stated last week, I said this week, this video would be kind of like breaking apart, showing how I got some of the ideas, what I did to create the vision for the film, and where my brain was when I wanted to create it, how I created it, the works. So this isn't going to cover every single thing or shot that I did, edited, or filmed physically, but it's going to cover most of the things when it comes to creating this short film called The Desert. So the first thing I kind of want to jump into is a little behind the scenes and me setting up and some of the atmosphere of when I was filming inside of my living room. It's a complete mess. There's lights everywhere. There's green screen. There's this. There's that. But it's sometimes when you don't see behind the scenes, you don't even think of behind the scenes. You don't even think of a behind the scenes existing, if you know what I'm saying. Look, a movie. You watch a movie. You take it almost for granted. At least I do. Even being a filmmaker, and then you realize like that must took a lot of work. There's probably like 33,000 lights on. They got all of these coordinators and stuntmen and lines and harnesses, and then after there's editing and green screen and there's rotoscoping, and there's so much that goes in it. But we see the final product when we see a film, so I'm always fascinated with behind the scenes stuff. And sometimes I forget how much work it takes. Holy crap! With that said, I'm gonna jump into some of the behind the scenes. I won't be able to cover it all because this video will be far too long. But I'll be able to cover some of the stuff that I think you guys find fascinating and some of the stuff that I worked on and tried to get looking exactly the way I wanted it as fast as I could because I had a set date I wanted to get the film out. Good morning. So I thought you'd kind of document my... Wait, can I? Oh, that's sick. I think I knew that. Document my little short film I'm working on. Haven't thought of a title yet. I've been working in Unreal Engine building these environments, right? And in process doing that because I then can put myself in there, chroma key, green screen, into any environment I want. And so the shot this morning is like, I want the staff sitting, but it's kind of a close-up, and the jewels just kind of swaying a little bit from a breeze. Here's my fire lighting, kind of diffused in an orange shirt. So my staff will be placed there, and then my cinema camera will be basically kind of positioned like this. And I'll show you a quick result here. It kind of comes into focus, a nice little handheld, and like I basically pulled focus on a rock on the bottom left of the screen, as you can see down there, and then handheld. So we're getting that depth, like I'm there in person. That's the desert behind me. There's killed all reflections and all light in here, and I think we got our shot with the staff of the jewel that lights up. I think I've finally figured out what I'm doing, and this gives me such a push. Anyways, here's a little clip. You ready for this? Do you wish you could see it full? I'll release this on TikTok, and you're not going to see this stuff until I actually put it together as a behind the scenes. The first thing I'm going to show you is the mixing of special effects, where my thought process was. So let's switch over to my editing suite, and we'll show you how it's done. Okay, so this is DaVinci Resolve. This is what I mainly work in. I used to work in at Origin. I used to work there as a media creator and a creative. And so this has been my bread and butter that I play in. Right now you're looking at the timeline I got here. And I split it up all into separate timelines for parts of the film that I want to do. So if we go over to the binocular scene where I'm trying to, I pull the binocular, and so I can just kind of keep track of my different shots that I combine in the end to together. So on this one, called the Monster Desert part, they're not very original, but anyways. So the idea was that the binocular that I picked up in this timeline over here, I pick up, turn on, and I bring it up to my eye, which if you've seen the film, you'll see me put up to my eye, look through. And what I see is this. Well, to get this kind of shot and to kind of make it look like it's, you know, realistic monster there, we got some movement in the camera to make it look like I'm not holding stable, we got some defocusing. How did we get that? So what we'll do is we'll turn off all of these overlays and clips and yada yada. We'll go down to the base here. So what we see here is the little desert palette. Looks kind of cool. It's got some strange hues and such. And where I got this from is I use Unreal Engine 5. Unreal Engine 5 is a 3D editing program and allows you to draw, it allows you to bring in these assets that are called megascans, a part of a library that are photorealistic 3D models, and they're actually scanned from real places and textures and things in the world, and they're brought into, and they're very easy and very simple to manipulate and scale to get the look you want. But for this particular shot, I need something that's kind of far away. I need it still kind of like be foggy, that's kind of like these either dust storms, just something that make it so it wasn't quite clear, but you could definitely tell that there was distance, and there's like a, you know, desert sort of floor and rocky kind of canyon desert sort of thing. So I ended up just doing this simple clip, had a virtual camera inside Unreal Engine 5, and rendered out this clip you see here. So play it through. Just, it's nothing. Then okay, so like, how do we add set? Well, they gotta have a monster. Let's put in a monster. So if you look down here on this one, video 2, we activate that one, and there's this monster you can see in the background. What we'll do is we'll actually, sorry, that was my bad. What we'll do, we'll actually take him, and I'll blow him up so you guys can kind of see him. And you're probably thinking, wait a second, why is he see-through? Like, what the heck is he see-through? I have the opacity down to 10, but full up, this is what this creature looks like. You're like, well, that doesn't match. Well, that's the beauty of definitely matching. So when he's that far out, I can play with opacity to give him that look like he's there, because technically this image is plopped on top of this bottom, right? This is green screened in. Like, this has, you know, the green screen has been keyed out, allowing me to use his image by himself. What that actually looks like, if you go over here, this is what the monster looks like. You know, this is we got to deal with all that. Green screen is, they use it in a lot of films, is you're able to place an actor, object, whatever it is, with a green screen behind it, and it easily, this software sees this odd color, gets rid of it, leaving this character, this object, whatever, to be able to place into any scene. So when I saw him, just like, wait a minute, if I put him there, adjust the height, make him look like he's, you know, quite a ways away, adjust the opacity, you're not going to be able to tell you're see-through, because of how far away is 1, he's out of focus, 2, 3 is because this background, there's nothing here that's going to go through him. They're going to be able to tell he's see-through. And this model actually got run on YouTube. Had permission from the guy to use, as long as I put the credit to my little film there. So let's go to the next one. The next one is code. Well, what I wanted to do is kind of like put this code in, right, to like give a readout of the monster. And at first I was going to have this code kind of like bigger on the screen here, and it was giving like a readout of the monster, maybe his heartbeat, health, food source, energy, height, weight, that kind of thing. Just, you know, something, just make it look cooler than what it is, just flat without it. And then I started adding it, and I was like, well, I don't know, we'll come back to that. So I muted the track, so it was like this. And then I moved on, and you'll find out that I actually ended up bringing it back in for a reason. This I use as artificial camera defocusing. So it blips in and out, blip, blip, blip. And a lot of times if you look on videos, right, even if they're using a camera phone, or if they're trying to do it on purpose for a film, the defocusing gives it kind of like a realistic kind of thing. But just sitting here, it's okay, it's nothing special, it doesn't look that great, it's so what, why is it doing that? It doesn't have to. Why don't I just see it clearly? Well, because I knew other elements I was going to add onto this. So if we go up another one, the adjustment clip here, this adjustment clip, what it allowed to is, what if I put like a targeting thing on this creature, and then with like an arrow out sort of, and then the readout, and I'm like, wait a minute, I had the codes before. So then I lined them up, like, okay, that makes sense. So then I started looking, I'm like, that's kind of cool. So like as I bring it up, kind of focuses in, whoop, there it is. They're kind of defocusing, and I made it so this effect, this defocusing, this not focused in, was across the code, the monster, and of course my background, so it was all affected. So it was like the whole entire thing was, and I didn't want this realistic, because what I wanted to do is use this code that was like giving this readout on the monster, I'll scrub forward here, to be like it was, it kind of like was placed on him there, and it locked on. And I wanted to keep it there no matter if I zoomed in and out, because I wanted to zoom in and out with my with my binocular type thing, but keep it like it was locked onto him, like, you know, it grabbed his information and it's there and it's not just like static on the screen. So we go next adjustment clip. Boom, put that on. Now a whole bunch changed here. Whole bunch. Let's see if we can talk a little bit about what we changed. So if we go to effects, this is what's been applied to that specific adjustment layer as you're seeing here. Or adjustment clip, but I always call it adjustment layer, it doesn't really matter. Analog damage. This adds that, you know, boob tube TV, square TV, analog, just kind of not good. Friggin' 480i. I don't know if it's P, maybe even less. Just the old square TVs, just kind of damaged. And as you can see, I put a screen warp, as you can see. And if we go back to here, down to lens distortion, you can see it kind of bent. See that? Because I wanted to make it look like he's actually looking through, and it's kind of warping around the edges, similar to binoculars. We have the vignetting on the edges to kind of give it more of a realistic look. Do we have to? No, we could use it without it. It's fine. As you also notice, I also added a little bit of movement, which is zoom in, kind of defocus, and then as I zoom back out, if you notice, his code is staying out there with him, locked on. And I wanted to do it differently and have it like that instead of have the code like move back and the line stretches. And I wanted it to be like it went out there, locked on, it stayed there, and I could get my readouts like that way. Just something different. So if we go back in, we take a look. Let's go over here and do lens distortion. Put that back on. Watch it through again. So what I really liked about the lens distortion is that not only does it give it this bubble and the edges are kind of warped, if you go in, it's kind of doing this mirroring on the edges here, and kind of like casting whatever this image is to the outside. Kind of like you're looking down a cylinder and it's reflecting inside of the eyepiece. That was my idea for this, and it worked out way better, and I didn't know this was a thing. And the edge behavior reflect over here, as you could see. And when you turn that on, it started to do this mirror effect. I'm like, oh my god, that's what I'm looking for. So you play it back again, zooms in, defocus, zoom back out, and you can see it kind of reflecting on the edges here, like you're actually looking through something. I love this look. And if you go up to analog damage and we start putting that in, it starts to look a little bit kind of cooler, but it started to get rid of that kind of warpy look that I did like. It started to create this very like heavy lining vignetting in a weird way, but it still kind of kept that cylinder look, like you see. But I didn't mind it. Also, if you look, what else is added? Can you guys see it? Okay, I'll turn off analog damage. Maybe you guys can. You guys see it? Turn it back on. Last time. A little bit of movement, right? A little bit of movement. Now, normally I would use camera shake. Normally that's exactly what I would do. But when you go in here and you mess with the noises coming across and the frequency and like the banding, that allows me to basically take the image and, you know, if I dialed it up, it'd be like really like really wavy, horrible signal, like you're trying to get a, you know, channel in. But I smoothed it out and made it very wide scaling. What that means is like the movement is very exaggerated, but it was smooth too, and it gave me this really, really cool movement. Almost as if a hand was really holding it, like I'm looking through it, because I didn't want an extreme. I didn't want it to be like shaking all over the place. So go to the one above it, another adjustment layer, just a clip. This actually helped me out quite a bit. And this did a lot for me. So we'll turn it off, turn it back on. First of all, I filled in these edges. It got rid of this weird star-like kind of formation that was happening here because of the heavy black lining and vignetting. It didn't look right. And so I took care of that. Plus, I turned it green, which if we go over to my other one, you can see the binocular actually comes up when I turn it on. It's like bloop. Green. That's how I'm looking through it, is with green. So I wanted to stay to that green. And so I play this through. There we go, that green, so it's kind of sticking with it. And what's awesome about this camera warp too is it warps because it's inside of this lens, this lens bubble, if you will, that it also warps the code, right? Because given the readout. See how it's kind of like bent, and then as you zoom out, it kind of like straightens out. It was perfect, because it was like you're seeing it and it's actually locked onto him, and it just added a more realistic feel to it. For me, I loved it. I was so happy with just this. So let's go up to the next one. Glitch texture. We'll turn this sucker on. Not a whole lot. It's just this little number here. It's just a little flick of a number. It's a little like assets pack you could find online of like cyberpunk add-ons and stuff, and it's all up to you how you want to add it. So I was thinking like this and like a distance thing. The clip, I think, if I remember correctly, I slowed down, I believe, so 90, just on 90, because it wasn't quite long enough. But it didn't matter, because it didn't have to necessarily mean anything, but it's just numbers that flip through and they don't make sense. But I also wanted to mimic it like reflecting on the outer here. But I wanted this to look more there than it does. So I was like, let's add a second one off to the right, like a reflection, same thing, reverse how it's sitting. So if you look right up here, flip over here to the right, this one is normal, basically is mirroring this. Turn down the opacity back to 7, so there's 100%, looks kind of weird. Actually, we can undo that. And so it gave this reflection in it, and it kind of fit exactly what I was looking for. Like we're, it's on the cylinder looking down this binocular type scope. Anyway, so you put all those together. Let's go with the base like we did before. Let's get rid of all of these. Here's our base. Monster, code, camera blur and such. Okay. A little bit of targeting zone there. A little bit of zooming in, and a little bit of effects for the analog damage and lens distortion. A little bit of movement. This turning the edges green, turning the overall image green and turning down these edges a little bit so it looks more to what I want it. And then adding this little number on the side, and then the mirror effect. And then the final shot looks like this. I'm not, like I said before, I'm not going to go through every single one, but I'll go through a couple on what I did. So let's go through one more while we're here. Let's go to the sword, because the sword was another really kind of like favorite one I did. I wanted it to look realistic, and I wanted this to feel good and look good and react to the environment sort of. What's cool is this right here is my big OLED TV. This image I had on repeat, and I basically stood on a chair, knelt on a chair, and you can see the edge of the screen right there actually, and acted as if I was pulling out my sword, boom, right there. Really in front of my TV, my camera shooting out my hand, focused in. Now, how did we get this blue glow of the sword? Well, if we go over here, and these are nodes. These are what I work in when I'm trying to color grade. It's mainly for color grading, or you could anything with masking or HLS profiles or HSL profiles or whatever the case may be. Nodes you can add things to that affect the image, and I like to try to keep them organized. So if we go up to the top one here, let's turn off all of these. Okay, that is the raw image with nothing. Actually, hold on. There we go. Raw image, nothing going on. Boom. That's it. That's the raw image. And me in front of my TV with nothing else. It's noisy. The color balance is a little bit but I had a blue light going on in my hand to kind of help with later on when I was going to be adjusting the glow and magic and post. Anyway, so let's talk about the first one. The first node, when you activate it, it adjusts out that blue a little bit. Still keeps it on the sword, still a little bit on my hand, but adjusts it out. And all of my corrections are down here on my color wheels, of course. And then I also went and I added a little bit of noise reduction, just temporal, which basically that means, well, I won't even go into that. I added some noise reduction. Let's just end it there. I kind of evened it out, and it got rid of some of that noise, because you can kind of see the noise on the rocks here and that gray. You turn this on, and it's kind of been tamed down quite a bit. Smoothed out a little bit, still remains, fairly sharp, smoothed out. Let's go into the second one. The second node here, apply it. Obviously, it's the glow. And all I did is basically I created a mask, put it on the sword. When I put it on the sword, all I did is go into my color grade, yank some stuff up, crank some stuff around, and it affected the color blade. Considering that mask was the only thing affected, you can see if I change some stuff around how much it affects, but it's only in the mask. So let's undo that. Okay, so we have the mask around the sword. Can we get this kind of bloom glow sort of blue, very similar to was it Sting? Is it Frodo's sword? Is it Sting? No, it's not Sting. Is it Sting? Whatever. Frodo's sword that glows blue and orcs are by. That was the inspiration. And the mask allowed me to do it. It was softened up a bit on the edges here. So if I cut that down, you can see it's kind of like too close. Didn't look right. But to keep it with the movement of the sword, I could have gone frame by frame, which means, okay, there's 1 frame, 2 frame, 3 frame, 4 frame, right? And I could have manually moved the mask. Sometimes that doesn't work so well because it looks choppy. What's great about DaVinci Resolve is you go down here and there's a stabilizer tab, but there's also a tracking tab. If you go over tracker window here, what you can do is you can place a mask somewhere, and then on that mask you can simply say track, and as long as it's got a clear enough picture, it will track the movements. Now that it's tracked, now that we're blowing out, we got our things, we started to adjust the clip a little bit more. The rock's a little bit bright because it is an OLED TV. The brights are brights, the blacks are black, and even though it was good dynamic range per se, it was a little bit dark, but this is kind of what I was going for. I knew I could adjust the rocks. So basically I took this, I put kind of like a gradient mask right here on the bottom that's shooting up. It's affecting, basically here's where it affects the most, and as you draw it up, it kind of like does this little flare out of how hard it affects, if you can see the upper image up there, right? So I dumbed down the rocks. I added a little bit of red, just a tad, just from the canyon and the desert I'm in, plus a little bit of maybe kind of ambient light, reflection from the fire. So if we go to the next one, what does the next one do? Guys see it? Up on my hand. So if the blade is glowing blue like this, it's far enough away from the ground, so it might not affect it too much. Maybe a little bit, but I would say it's more down here that you would see it, but it's not in frame, so I didn't worry about it. But I want it to kind of reflect on my hand. And how am I going to do that? How would I, make this just affect my hand and nothing else? Same principle. Created a mask, basically painted it on my hand the way I wanted it to look. See this? I'm going to kind of look up in the final image up here. Kind of see it, how that mask affects. And all I did, cranked it up a little bit of gain, a little bit of colorization, what I wanted to do, cranked it over to get just a little bit of that blade kind of bleeding on my hand, to make it look like, oh, the blade's lit. Right now, yeah, it looks fine, but there would be some sort of reaction here on my skin from reflecting from the blade, and that's where this comes in. Again, tracked it just like the blade, and you see it come down on my hand, and it holds pretty much to where I want it. Now, let's go to the second one. Here's my other note. Turn on. You guys notice what it was? Anything? No? Just a little? Sure? So there's a little cover up that I had to do here and how much it affects. And what the problem was is there was actually some stuff. If you can see, it's hard to see, so I won't crank up the brightness, but there was a reflection on my TV from me doing this in front of it, because my TV is a very glossy TV. So when I blurred out some of the stuff, cranked down the shadows and the lift down here, it started to make it look funny, so I had to add a little bit of blur. And if you go over here to the blur, you can see I have cranked all the way up, crank it all the way down, super sharp my blade, blurry, and so on. The final note, turn it on. Boom. What do we see? All it does is it brightened up the scene just a little bit. That's all it did. Go in here. All it did is add a little bit of gain. And I think I lifted the shadows yet. 0.02. Just a little bit, because it's a little dark for me, and it's really subtle, but it's what I needed in the clip. So there's our final clip of the sword. We'll play through. Boom. But I didn't want it to stay like that. You can't just have a glowing sword looking like that. We're going to add some stuff. So the first thing I wanted to add was fire. What's awesome is there's plenty of fire packs. You can go onto like sites like Production Crate, and you can go like if you have a subscription, or there's plenty of people that put out free stuff in YouTube, or if you want really high-end stuff, you can like pay for a bundle, and it doesn't have to be very expensive, and you can use them how you see fit. All these clips come in basically alphaed. What that means is they have a black background. When you add them, you simply dial it in over here real quick, and you can use the image. In this case, it happened to be fire. So here's the fire. So what I wanted to do is like I was casting the spell onto the sword, almost like the sword is passing through the spell. So what I wanted to do is map it. So what I did, same exact thing. So here is the flames, and all I did was manually, if you look over here, I have a pathway. If you look over here between position, watch those positions bounce all around, ding, 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 to match the movement of my sword. And what I did is, you can see this. See how it's this wide right here? The flame would only be this wide, but it wouldn't make sense because the sword, it grows and gets longer to match the length of my blade. And so that's when I got the idea of like, what is it if it's passing through? Yeah, let's go to the second one here. Sorry, this is because of the playbacks, and this is kind of a very high key type of look here, but that does look natural if we were to go back, playback, off. There we go. And so it's like passing through the spell. So almost as if, there we go. This is just basically an overlay to kind of blend in the whole scene. Add smoke across my blade. It's very, very, very subtle. And you can see it kind of moving across the ground a little bit. You can see it really in this area. So we'll turn it off. Play through this area. See, there's nothing. Go back. Turn it back on. Play through this area. And you can kind of see this smoke. And the idea was atmosphere, and if the fire was right in front of me, which it was, it's kind of blended in. Pretty simple. Next one I added was ember. Got to be one of my favorite add-ins when it comes to anything like this. So when you put all the pieces together, so let's get rid of these. We'll just go down to the clip by itself. Boom. Add in the fire. Add in this. Add in the atmospheric fog. Boom. Cool. All right, let's make it a little bit better. Amber. Adjust my clip, which is down. And then the final, which is widescreen. And you go, woof, and it burns. Sorry it's not playing back. I really hate that it's chugging like that because it shouldn't be. But we'll go back to half. There you go. Okay, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video so far. There's been a lot of stuff in here, I know. It might feel a little bit chaotic and not a whole lot of flow to it, and I understand that, and it felt that way to me even editing this. By the way, if you guys can hear that, I apologize. That's my washer going on the fritz. Anyways, imagination is everything. Never lose faith in yourself and keep shooting. Anyways, I'll catch you guys next week.